We're on the record. Good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, May 13th. It's a little bit after 7 p.m. Tonight we have a planning and zoning general meeting, and we are in Town Hall here in room 206. We also, we don't have a public hearing today.
No general meeting.
Chairman's report, good for you. Let's hear that. Wow, that's going to be exciting. Let's get right into it. The first item on the agenda we have is the Plan of Conservation Development, the POCD, discussion of townwide POCD survey results with consultants Hardesty Hanover and our friend here, Neil, and his associates.
Yes.
Welcome. We all got your survey over the weekend.
Thank you.
Looks like chock full of nuts, so you're explaining everything that's in this to us, right?
Well, there's actually just a few things I want to cover around the survey to update you on as well. So I'm going to start with and for the record, my name is Neil Desai with Hardesty Hanover, and this is Malcolm Simpson. I first want to update you that we've just about completed all the meetings with the departments, commissions, boards, committees, whatever words they're called. So this is just the list of all of them. The parks is in red because I had car trouble that day, so I'll follow up though with the parks department.
Did Jeremy pinch hit for some of these?
Jeremy pinch hit for that one because I had car trouble that day, and I think the other one was there another one, Jeremy?
I joined you for a couple, and then Fred joined you for the environmental groups last week.
Right.
And I joined you for Commission on Aging.
Right.
And PZ&H of RTM.
Yep. That's right. And so we covered all these
ARB.
groups and the review board. The next meeting I have is tomorrow, and the next and last one, the final meeting will be the Environmental Protection Commission. And just as a recap for each of these committees, we came up with a list of discussion questions, generally fairly similar for each one, but of course tailored to the subject. And that's how we started from there. And then we either went through the discussion questions or the committees, depended on each committee. Some committees said, we have this, we have a list of things that we know we want to talk about right away. And so, but one thing we want to do, so to give you a sense of what came out of these.
Well, let me just back up for a second. With regards to those, it sounds like you nailed most of them. I wouldn't be surprised if some other people want to speak with you too, one-on-one. But people like the Sewer Commission and Environmental Protection are very important.
Yeah, Sewer Commission, Malcolm met with them.
The sitting guy right behind you. He's really smart.
There you go.
If you plan to build a sewer plant in town,
yeah,
you're going to have a little bit of pushback.
Got it. So, and then also we met with the following organizations: the Chamber of Commerce. I did a virtual meeting with their director. And then together, the Land Trust, Green Wave, and Pollinator Pathway, we talked about conservation strategies that have been in the previous POCDs and how they can move forward into the next POCD. So we had a good discussion about that. And what we want to do is have some sort of summary memo table, something that is synthesized in a very clear way, just for you to have, so you can just see in general what the kind of commentary was like from each group, what was the nature of their comments, if they had any kind of special requests, if they wanted any additional meetings or anything like that. Just we want to be able to summarize all this as a product, so that you'll have a chance to get a sense of what we heard from everybody. Some groups had specific recommendations. Some we had kind of more discussions that covered a lot of broader topics. It varied depending on the groups. It really varied each time. So, and all those meetings I think had just about all of them had links. Have a recording up by TV 79. So we'll include that as well if you're curious to kind of dig into them any further. So we'll be providing that. And so I just wanted to, that's what the thing I want to mention around the survey is just that we've almost completed that process, and tomorrow will be the last meeting with the Environmental Protection Commission. So the next step is discussing the working draft of the townwide survey results. Now, we could do this a couple of different ways. It's a long document, it's 45 pages. I don't know if we have the time to kind of click through each one, or do we already, Adam already knows what he wants to do. Or, which sounds like the way we're gonna go, is, you know, we wanna hear right away, you know, what your observations are, your thoughts on what you see in that document.
Why don't you tell us what the conclusion is?
So there's a blank summary page, and so that's where the conclusion is going to be actually written. In my mind, there's two things that float up to the top. And they're two kind of related.
What are we doing with this at the end of the day? Is this going to be incorporated into the POCD, or is it a standalone document?
This will be a standalone piece, so it's not meant to be like part of the actual POCD. It's a standalone. This is the survey results, and then our plan is to take this to the public workshop, design some sort of exercise to get to refine each of these things. I think there's one important thing that we need to figure out is what are going to be the priorities within each of those different topics, whether it's, you know, I guess the four we divided into are conservation, built environment, transportation, and so on. So we want to get a sense of where the priorities lie in that one. So that's why we intentionally didn't ask for like, what is your top priority? We wanted to get a sense of what the broad lay of the land is in terms of concerns and likes about Darien. And then the next step would be to kind of figure out like, okay, you can't do all 20 things all at once. What are the kind of the priority topics that rise to the top?
Well, that's what we're here for. We're going to set the priorities.
Well, right. So with the public and the P&Z. So right. So we want to hear what the public has to think through the public
Right.
workshop. Then we come to you to, you know, kind of.
You started to say there was two things that rise to the.
Yes. So the two topics that were written about in multiple of the pages, you know, whether it was in single-family homes or in, you know, other topics of conversation, was the feeling, which is not something you can necessarily control. The feeling that the development that's happening is happening too fast, being timed too quickly. Again, these aren't things that necessarily can be controlled in terms of the timing of development, but what people seem to be seeing, you know, this is the new Darien that's being built, and there seems to be dissatisfaction for a lot of the survey respondents about how this is appearing, how this is contributing or not contributing to the town character. There's been an emphasis on town character in the previous POCD. It was really that was a very strong emphasis of it, and so, you know, when we look to the outcomes, what are the reasons why people are finding this? You know, why is this kind of not meeting the test of public sentiment, at least according to our survey? So that's one question. It's both the appearance, design, scale of new development. It could be that it's new. Anything that's new is just going to be jarring to most people if they're used to seeing a certain Darien for 20 years. All of a sudden there's something new happening. That's going to really, you know, get people elicit a response, and we kind of see that response in the survey results. This is all within the last few years this is happening, and I think the Corbin is still yet to be developed, but at the same time, and yeah, Malcolm, feel free to chime in also, because I think one thing, you know, Malcolm and I were talking about was the fact that it's not an overwhelming sentiment that this is all bad or wrong. People do appreciate, you know, there's a couple aspects of the development people like: the new amenities, the new shops, the new housing options, affordability options. Affordability not necessarily being affordable as in the capital A sense, but it's more affordable than the other options available, which is a large single-family house. So it does provide, people appreciating that, providing more options. So there's, you know, one kind of area is about the physical development that's been happening, and the second area is the environmental aspects of things, kind of and starting to create a more of a connection between the two. Both, you know, how can we start to have development homes start to, or just, you know, how can there be more ecological and environmental forms of development that can happen, whether it's incorporated through, you know, energy, you know, stormwater management techniques, and so, you know, so there's like two things that are coming out which I want to bring out in the executive summary. That's why that's kind of blank now, because that's the very last piece, really important piece, is like, how do we synthesize this into an executive summary so that people can, they don't necessarily have to read the 45 pages. I would encourage them to look through all of the data, but, in a quick spiel, what is the, what's rising to the top? What's happening? And then the last page, which is the next step section, is the other very important thing is, so what are we going to do with this information, next steps, and what comes after the fact that, we've done all this work, what happens next? And so that's partly defined by ourselves, what we think needs to do, and also by your sentiments on what you saw in the survey. So,
Let me back up a second too.
Yeah.
It says you had 1,189 respondents. Is
Yeah.
that a good number or a bad number? Did you
I
look at
think,
like Great Island, how many responses they had, Parks and Rec?
I didn't look at what Great Island, do you happen to know what Great
I
Island
know
results are?
Parks and Rec is really proud
Yeah.
of what they got,
Yeah.
and they want to make sure that you didn't beat their number.
I had
That's serious.
I don't think that we did. We
Yeah.
fell short of the Great Island, which I'm not surprised by because Great Island is a very exciting, tangible thing as opposed to the POCD.
Just state your name for the record so I have you.
Sorry, my name's Malcolm
Yes.
Simpson. I'm with
And
Hardesty
can you
Hanover.
pick them up, shoot into that microphone?
Yes, I can. I just want to make sure
Okay.
I can get it.
Because that's part of it. We want to make sure we're capturing everybody.
Yeah.
And not, there's this silent, there's the loud minority and
Yeah.
silent majority,
Right.
right? Because this stuff that's happening now, it's been under construction for the last 4 years, was planned 20 years ago. The Federal and Commerce District, that was done under Fred Conzi's watch, and it's probably 16 years ago.
Wow.
And the guy that designed it was a
Yeah.
lifelong resident here. The Corbin District is started at least 12 years ago. And that resident is a lifelong resident. And Palmer's is being built by a 40-year resident of Darien.
Mhm.
So it's not like someone's parachuting in town
Right.
and building something like that. Nothing in this town gets built without full buy-in of everybody.
Mm.
And this stuff is planned well before.
Yeah.
So that we're trying to look at, because there was one thing in here, it said someone wants immediate access to Great Island. That's really not the purpose of this.
Right.
We're looking what are we going to plan for the next 10 years.
Right.
If they can't get into Great Island last Sunday, that's not my problem. That's not the intent of this.
I think that you have touched on something that will come up with any survey, which is the response bias. The people who are more likely to respond to the survey are the people who, for lack of a better word, have a bone to pick or are experiencing whiplash from the change.
Right.
If everything's fine and your response is going to be 10 out of 10 across the board, you're much less likely to respond to the survey.
Right.
That isn't to say that we should ignore these results, but it is something to keep in mind when reviewing and analyzing these results.
Okay. That's where you guys come in for the analysis. Right.
Another thing that I noticed in the analysis of the survey results was, and again, I mean, it's a big sample group, but a lot of what is getting expressed is seemingly contradictory. There's too much development. We're seeing too much multifamily development. At the same time, we want walkable communities. We want a well-developed downtown and everything that comes with that village feel. We worry that there isn't enough resources for the services that are in the town, but at the same time, we don't want the development that would generate those resources. And so we're seeing a lot of those contradictory responses. Another thing to keep in mind as we analyze these results.
Yeah, that's why you're hired to analyze it.
Right, and I think a lot. The comments as well. I think there's the impression about the apartments being a generator of enormous amount of school children that's going to overburden our schools.
But that's not true.
Exactly, that's kind of a leap. So we understand that when we see the responses as well. That there's a lot of things that there's a lot of kind of emotion in people's responses and kind of knee-jerk in terms of certain things,
Mhm.
So we're aware of that when we kind of go through the responses. You know, we have to report what we are hearing from people, but, you know, how, you know, is there a way to kind of, you know, better couch some of these results and kind of, because I figured one of the things that the P&Z would be thinking is like, you know, well, just these things like, you know, you started talking about how long ago some of these things were planned and designed. Another thing is like, you know, how can we, there's some things that need to be fact-checked that, you know, people need to get more educated about so that they, you know, so that they know instead of kind of leaping to it and out and a certain opinion about something. So that's kind of, you know, part of what I was wanting to, was you know, we'll be wanting to hear more about from you. But in terms of your initial question, Steve, about the response rate, 10% was the goal I set. 10% of the adult population is like what I like to see. We got a little less than that. We did work.
10% of what's the starting number?
10% of the, I'm sorry, 8% of the adult population. So what is it? There's
What's the adult population?
14,000. I think the population of people over 18 in Darien is about 14,000, I believe. So I was looking for the goal I kind of look at for any town is like 10 to kind of get to that you know, just a kind of a number. We got 8, which is good. I think in terms of if this survey were meant to be like our final deliverable, I wouldn't be satisfied. But the fact that this is just kind of a step in the process.
Great, it's just the beginning. We only started.
Yeah, this is the beginning of the process, and this kind of met, or it may not have met like our 10% goal, but it, you know, the broader goal was to start to identify the issues that are, you know, that people are either really pleased about, which also require huge investment, but also things that people are concerned or frustrated about as well.
The thing that's important to me, if you look at question 6, what's your favorite place in town?
Yeah.
Weed Beach is number 1.
Yeah.
So to me, if your favorite place is Weed Beach, you should throw as much resources at Weed Beach as you want.
Right.
Your second place is Pear Tree Point.
Fourth is beaches again.
I mean, all these are parks and rec amenities, which is
So
like,
they
you know, if
should
you want to.
they should do a huge renovation of Weed Beach.
Well, which, they're doing something, aren't they? And, but also in terms of like adaptation, you know, is it? I don't know. That's the question. Is, you know, that it brought up to me was you know, is Weed Beach and Pear Tree Point Beach, you know, in terms of resiliency lens, you know, adapting to sea level rise, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
you
we're
know,
doing that.
how much has gone into that so
But
far?
see, I mean, to me, those 2 things or those 3 things on top of 4 things, that's exactly what we're doing. So we're doing it right.
Right.
Okay, keep going. I don't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
Do you feel that you have, based on traditional results, that we are being represented by our population, like our population distribution for age, looks like X, and the respondents echoed that, or are we skewed in hearing a voice of one particular?
The overwhelming response was from people who were residents. We got very few non-resident responses.
Yep.
But the largest demographic are people who've lived in the town for over 20 years.
Right.
There's no way to verify that. That's all,
Yep.
you know.
Right. But one thing I do want to do, that's one thing that, you know, I think there's probably a placeholder page for that, but I want to do a crosstab because of the fact that the largest percentage of people that took the survey have lived in Darien for 20 or more years. I wanted to get a sense of how the categories varied among age group, as well as how long they lived in Darien. Just so that adds a little more perspective. And you know, one town, for example, I was surprised that everything was the same. In terms of all the different, we did a similar survey. Every category was the same, except the younger folks had a higher, had a lower value on public transportation because they're the ones who were taking public transportation, meaning the train, you know, that sort of thing. So that's 2 other things I want to add to this. This is to give a sense of how opinions differed among some of the, you know, segmenting some of the responses.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess if there's any specific pages I'm going to talk about, I could just click through, but I think, you know, Steve mentioned the what do you like most about, the favorite places. I guess my question, maybe the better way to frame this is, you know, was there anything that surprised you in walking through and clicking through the survey results? I mean, this right now is on question 5. What do you like most about Darien? I think, you know, think, certainly the beaches and schools really comes out to the top, sense of community. But as we start getting into some of the more topic-based sections, let me go to that page here. So this page summarizes the weighted averages of each topic. So essentially, the higher the number, the higher level of I'm very satisfied, and down low is the lowest in terms of the most people who were dissatisfied with a certain aspect of town. But I do say that I do add on this page is, despite what you see on these averages, there was plenty of commentary, criticism, suggestions on all the topics, no matter how high or low they scored. But I guess on this page, is there anything that surprises you, or anything that you want to?
I wanted biking higher up. That was a big thing last time, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
I would have thought that would have been higher.
You expected that would be higher?
I would have thought it would have been. I mean, we put bike stands at every single apartment building has a bike stand now. We put bike stands at the train stations.
Mm-hmm.
So we put that came out once before, so
Yeah.
we put it forth. There's bike lanes on all of Stanford and Norwich have bike lanes all over the place.
Yeah.
And it's called, as Craig would tell you, it's called Share the Road. That's why there's that extra thing.
Right.
We don't have that on the Post Road, and we don't have that anywhere in Darien.
Right.
I think partly because it doesn't fit.
Right.
But parking was one, and if you go to the parking page, see, some of the things that came out of here to me are actually great, and a lot of them were already doing it. So if you go to page 12, which is parking,
Mm-hmm.
Our first selectman, who's here, is having a parking meeting for downtown in 2 weeks, I think, next week.
Right, I saw the newsletter, I think.
The signage and the impact, and there's not enough, and wait lists and all that. So it's got something he's been working on, and the prior first selectman was sitting next to the existing first selectman who worked on the same thing.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, it's good to see it's in here,
Mhm.
because it's already on our radar screen. So it's gonna be on our radar screen for the next 10 years. I mean, that's kind of stuff that to me I think is cool.
Yeah.
I saw something here about solar panels and whatnot. We already put solar panels on all the municipal buildings.
Right.
There's solar panels on this one. There's solar panels on almost all the schools.
Right. People seem to be aware of that, I think.
We can't put solar panels on, you can't put solar panels on my house.
On what?
On my house.
Oh, okay.
The town can't do that. They can do it to their own houses. There's no real tax breaks for solar panels because the town doesn't get anything out of it. But things like that, I think are good. We just have to figure out how to weave them into the town plan and conservation development. And those are the things that you want to take the stuff that's in here and expand it in the town plan and conservation and focus on it. Like the thing that's important to me is still diversity of housing.
Mhm.
We've been working on that for 10 years, or probably 20 years.
Yeah.
I think East Lane was a great success. That was an offshoot of a thing called the Cottage. I don't know if you ever heard about that one. It's one building, but it's really 7 kids. And that East Lane is 12 kids, and that's a way to diversify housing.
Mhm.
Historic preservation, I think it was actually a little bit of a tag team between the architectural review board and the zoning board of appeals. Those two chairpersons. The oldest house in Darien, which I think Washington slept in, was preserved.
Mhm.
And that's a historic landmark in town. I don't think it has a placard on it. Does it supposed to?
Yeah. Weed
It
House?
does.
Yeah.
They just tried to sell it a couple of years ago, right?
It
Well,
well,
they
did
have
so.
new buyers who've been fixing it up.
Yeah.
Oh, it did sell.
Yeah, and I think we actually they moved the house
The house.
to put in another house to make the whole thing economical. But that's the kind of things that I think is important. That's stuff the town can do.
Right.
There's certain things we can do more, composting at the town transfer station. We can support stuff like that. But that's really, to me, that's really the P&Z issue. You're going to find out when you get to the sewer commission and the conservation protection people. But that's the stuff that does drive me a little bit nuts, and it's not our job to educate the public, but
Right.
you can put it out there in some way, shape, or form. Most of the new apartments that are built in town are occupied by either snowbirds or older couples.
Right,
That's reality.
right,
There's been parking studies done by professionals like Redness and Mead that say inside this building, there's gonna be 12% kids or 12 kids, and they're pretty much dead on.
right.
When I sell my house, which is, some people call it a 4-bedroom house, because I have 4 kids, you know, someone's gonna buy it and put 4 kids in there, but I'm gonna live in an apartment
Right.
with the 2 of us.
Right.
So
That's
it's the
exactly right.
backfilling.
That's exactly right, yeah.
Do people, if you think about it, at the beginning, when we started all this stuff 10 years ago, and you're not knowledgeable, you don't know that. But every big house that sells, and you can ask one of the realtors here,
Yeah,
she sells, gets a big house, she fills it with a whole bunch of kids.
yeah,
And there's an older couple that moved out, and
and that's
so it goes
exactly
from
the,
2 to 5 when they leave the house, and they go to the apartments.
that's exactly what we've seen in other places. It's,
But to
yeah.
your other question, you had posed the question of, are we surprised at anything that came forward?
Yeah.
And I think, I'm happy to see what we hear anecdotally with people talking to us in the grocery store
Right.
or on the street or at a party. It pretty much just reflects what we hear in our conversations with residents. People have expressed their concern, and now we have at least a system to capture that
Mhm.
with regards to frustration on traffic and
Right,
concerned about overdevelopment, and, you know, people are feeling it.
yeah,
Sounds to me that they're feeling it, which doesn't surprise me.
all right, that's
And
good
the
to know.
most important thing in town is schools, you
Yeah.
know? We built a new high school, we built 3 new grammar schools, we built a 4th new grammar school. And probably next we might do the middle school for the 2nd time since I've lived in town. But anybody else have any big things? I mean, George, you've been around.
Yeah, no, I don't have any more to add than what you've already picked up on. Very good.
Jamie, anything special?
Not at this point, thank you.
Okay. Adam?
No, I'm good.
Stormwater, it seemed there was a lot of concern around stormwater and stormwater management,
Flooding, yeah.
flooding.
Go to that page.
How do we fix that? You can ask the guy behind you on Tuesday, I think.
There you go. Well, again, like, you know, part of it is a case, I mean, you know, when you read this, you know, you see that sometimes people are responding to things that, oh, hey, you know, we're actually working on this, you know, we've been doing this, and some people don't know that at all, and so that's an important thing that I
Which
think
is
the
fine.
POCD needs to bring out, is the progress that is being made on some of these topics that people are kind of concerned about, so they are doubly aware, they know that, you know, it's not something, an initiative that necessarily needs to be invented, it's, many things are already. I talked to Public Works, and they're doing a whole lot of things. I want to talk with them
You
about.
might want to add a paragraph or an introductory section to this POCD at the beginning, saying that, like, over the last 10 years, we said we were going to do this, and we did do it. You know, and it's in the works. Because that's the stuff that was in there, and I think in the last 10 or 15 years, and Jeremy's the best source of everything.
Right.
A lot of stuff has been acted. Some stuff did fall by the wayside, 100% it did.
Yeah.
You know, but there's reasons behind it. But even the stuff about the multifamily housing,
Right.
that is a regulation from the state of Connecticut.
Right.
If you don't do that,
Right.
you know, they try every year. They would pull taxes from us, they would do this, do that. Now fair share is coming out, and Fred's gonna explain that to us tonight. If we don't do something, you know, they wanna change all zoning in Greenwich and Darien from 2-acre zoning to 1-acre zoning.
Right.
So you can buy a 4-acre house, somebody can knock it down and put 4 houses there. That's a state regulation. It has nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think that, I mean, and this has been something that you've talked about over the course of the presentation, and I don't know if in the survey results summary is the appropriate place. Maybe this needs to be something that gets fleshed out at the open house and in the POCD itself.
Yeah.
But there is a pretty big gap between the results that we're seeing and what is in the control of the town.
Great. Which is, when you did the survey at the beginning, I saw stuff like that in there, the questions. There's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
You know, can we advocate to put in a town pool? Kind of, sort of, but not really. This committee has no money. We can't do anything. If somebody wants to put in a town pool, we can approve it.
Yeah.
We can kind of guide where it could be.
Can't necessarily make it happen, yeah.
No.
Can be open to it, can be encouraging of it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that, there's a lot of examples of that.
You know, we can't tell the high school to put a pool in high school.
No, and you can't put solar panels on somebody's house. You can't tell someone what to do with their land.
Do you know how many respondents advocated for keeping the dump open on Sunday?
No, it was only, I mean, I would have to, you could probably look at the comments and,
We could find out for you.
find out that, that seemed to be something that kept, that I, kept on coming up in the comments. So do you just think it's just like a small minority, or is that a common thing you hear,
I think it's a common thing.
Yeah.
That's why I'm wondering, is it like a lot of people, the majority were like, when talking about the dump, because most people I think in town have
Transfer station.
Transfer station.
have a pretty positive view of our for the size of
They
our
love
town.
it, yeah.
It's a pretty
People love
nice,
it.
pretty nice transfer station. So I'm just curious as to the support of us, or the desire for a Sunday, because not being open one half of the weekend is tough.
Yeah, what the specific comments are on that.
Yeah.
We'll look into that.
Yeah,
I mean, the
that's
fact
good.
is, I'm looking at this page 36 here, right, I mean, open more days, more hours, I mean, that's essentially the gist of the comments, I mean,
Yeah, that's operational. I mean, that's stuff that if we send this to the selectmen, which we did, they can look at stuff like that. Maybe they close it on Wednesdays and keep it open on Sundays. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's operational. That's got nothing to do with P&Z. If you don't mind, Mr. Zagrodzky, you were here. Would you like to comment on this document at all? John Zagrodzky here, is the first selectman. I know you.
Sure. First of all, I thought the survey was well designed, and the compilation of the results was easy to read and absorb, and so my compliments to all of you. I guess my comments are reflective of the kind of input you would get for something like this, which is everybody wants to throw something up against the wall to see if it might stick, or I've always had this thought in the back of my mind, and now that you're asking me about this, I definitely want to throw out my ideas. And so even though a lot of those ideas are going to be either infeasible, simply because there are financial or geographic limitations, or our zoning rules don't permit that, or financially difficult, simply because we just can't get the money to do all of these things all at once. People should be confident and open in offering their ideas for stuff like that. We want to discuss those things, and providing sort of unfiltered input, like I think many people did, particularly in the comments as you reported, helps us get a sense for where people stand, and maybe throws out ideas we had not thought about. So I thought it was valuable input to the process. I'm looking forward to seeing how we translate that into a plan that would help provide guidance for decisions that the town makes on things like development, so that when we do have an opportunity to think about, well, we've got some prioritization flexibility here, let's go back and see what people said in the POCD that they wanted to see, and we can act on that. So again, I think it's great, and a good guidance to start the process.
Thank you.
Agreed. Good job.
Thank you.
One thing I want to do also is add, just so people are aware that we got a lot of comments, so that each page is like, we probably got about 300 comments on the transfer station, so we'll probably add a number somewhere on each page to show how many comments exactly came through. So it wasn't like 10 comments that, make this page, it's like 300 comments or so. So that's one other thing I wanted to do to the page, to add to this working draft, so, yeah.
So it's something like that, if you transfer that into the POCD, you would make the statement that you don't want to make the transfer station smaller.
Mm-hmm.
At one point in time in the town of Darien, they did. Mm-hmm. They made it, 2 acres smaller and 3 acres smaller. I don't know if it needs to be bigger in terms of acreage. Yeah. Maybe they need another buildings, but I don't know. But I mean, the Public Works building is connected to it, it's separate and apart from it, but they dumped, would you put like $10 million into it?
We're not anywhere close to capacity on the transfer station. And keep in mind that in terms of closing it during the week, we have a lot of commercial interest and developers that rely on the transfer station for disposal of their
Tipping
waste.
fees
And
and
so
all that stuff.
that's not something that I think we can readily change. I mean, we'd have to talk to Public Works to see about extending hours on the weekend. I get that point.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of cool.
For something like the Parks and Rec page on like 38, just because, right, of the top 4 comments, it was like beach, Great Island, and then generic, the beaches. So really, it's like the beaches were 1 and 2, right? It seems just on this page, because that was like the #1, things that people like about the town. Just some more like data on the response rate, because like some of these are obviously like, as you said, they're contradictory. People are like, oh, it's outdated and needs renovation, and then there's another thing where it's like many feel that there's too much overdevelopment at the beaches and it needs to be less developed. And it's like, well, which one is it? Do you not like,
Right.
you know what I mean? So is it like, I don't know, I just want to see how those stack. Is it neatly 50-50 or that seems to be where people, like about town, so it's somewhere we want to certainly focus on.
So a little bit more quantitative
Yeah.
information. That's definitely doable, because I think it was started by kind of putting together a table and saying like positive, negative, and that starting to do that approach, but then we kind of strayed away from that. But I like the idea of having just in the vein of having the total number of comments received, putting on the page. I think having some sort of numeric value to the positives and the negatives, or maybe if it's very specific, the request, being able to put a number on that. I think that's definitely
Yeah,
possible.
I mean, like if you look at like Pear Tree Point Beach, the #1 comment is it needs upgrades, and then the second one is some respondents want it left largely undeveloped. Like,
Yeah. And what's
which
the
is
break?
it? You got one or the other. We can not do anything, or we can make it
Yeah.
look nice.
Is this 20/80 or is this 50/50?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, that's why the words, I mean, many versus some are they
Right.
assume a quantitative feeling, but they don't really get you to that, so.
You can say 10% want this,
Yeah.
80% want that. I mean,
Yeah.
some respondents would like the snack bar concession to be reopened. Okay, is that 10% of people? But the thing you gotta remember about this survey, this is a tool for us to go forward with the POCD.
That's right.
If we send this to Parks and Rec, they can read it and they go, okay, great. But there's nothing we can do as a P&Z commission to open the snack bar. Zero.
Right,
It's got nothing to do with us.
right, so.
If they come in for a plan
Right,
to do it, it's gotta be out of the flood zone, it's gotta be a certain size, it can't be too high, it can't be too small, that's what we can do, but.
Yeah.
And plus, to Mr. Zagroski's point, if it costs $15 million to build a snack bar that's flood compliant, and they sell 5 sandwiches a weekend and 2 sets of french fries, it's not happening.
right.
That makes no sense.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that's the conundrum with POCDs is that, we're addressing so many topics, from, conservation topics, this, that, and, there's a certain number of topics that the P&Z can, directly address. And then there's all these other topics. How do you get those going? That's what, when Jeremy and I were looking at the 2016 plan, we kind of had a whole sense of, we got a better sense of what's been accomplished and what hasn't been accomplished. And we know that there's a gap. And so one of the things we want to talk about later on in this is there a way to have what are some ways to, have the P&Z be part of, have some sort of committee, some sort of group
We don't
of
need
people
any
that
more
can do that.
committees.
So,
We got enough
after this plan is done, so that recommendations that don't have anything to do with P&Z, maybe transportation recommendations or something, they have some body of folks that could work on it. I don't know, it's just a question
Right.
that, I
Yeah,
want to look at
there's
later on.
there's already somebody that exists to do that, trust me.
We've met with all of them and the list keeps growing.
Yeah. That's why I said you might know. All right, so we're into this for 45 minutes. Anything else?
Nope, we expect that Neil and Malcolm will come back in June, probably maybe June 10th, with more information. Keep the momentum going.
Yeah, I mean, I would finalize this with a couple of
Yes.
things we have tonight, and then we can make it as a public document for somebody to read it, because the town paid for it. But the results are the results, right? You're not gonna change the results.
No.
It's how you present them to us in a document, which is fine. And exactly what he said, if, 3 people want the dump open on Sunday and 90% of people don't, you can put that in there, we're not changing it.
Right.
But it's valuable to have, and I think the thing that we just talked about a minute ago, about some things started 15 years ago,
Right.
and some things, are gonna start new, and some things are ongoing forever, right? The one thing that I specifically remember that we did at the POCD last time was to relook at zoning, right? We also made a big thing about looking at signage. So right after the POC was done, I think in August or September of the next year, we took up the whole signage packet, threw it in the air, and fixed it. And it was like that, and that was immediate. Because it's, you want a consistency, you want this, you want that. Then we looked at all the
Commercial zones.
commercial zones. We had 15 commercial zones.
Yeah.
East Post Road, West Post Road, Center Post Road, and we combined them all.
See, one quick point. One thing that was interesting about this, 99% of it was stuff that we've already thought about and has crossed our mind, and we've heard from friends and neighbors over all the time we've been in town. And so in that sense, it's not meant as a negative comment, we didn't learn, at one level, we didn't learn anything. And so what we did learn, or what I think it's a helpful reminder of, is that we still need to go through a process of saying, all right, of all the things that I'm doing, that you guys are doing, that Great Island is doing, we kind of have a sense of the direction and what's next and all of that. All of these groups, we know what that is. The question is, do any of these survey results suggest that we need to make a change, an addition, a subtraction, something that we're doing right now that says, based on this, maybe we ought to shift that direction, or maybe this thing that we thought wasn't a priority, we should consider it, we should deprioritize this thing. Now, that's kind of what I'm mostly interested in. I think it was satisfying that a number of things that, particularly for Great Island, but also for the Board of Selectmen, it looks like our priorities are largely aligned, but figuring out kind of where I might be wrong on that would be a priority for me personally. And hopefully coming out of these survey results, I'm going to spend a little bit more time and would like to get even more of the raw data just to get a sense whether a reprioritization of anything would be valuable.
Okay.
Yeah. Like in the prior POCD, it said in there, acquire town property that's adjacent to other beaches and adjacent to this and adjacent to that. And we bought Great Island.
Yeah.
It's a great town asset.
Right.
It was in the POCD.
POCD,
It said POC, acquire this stuff before it goes to
Yeah.
open auction. And we did exactly what the POCD said. That's the good part about it. If it doesn't, if a new POCD says, stop buying properties, and somebody else buys it and builds, 360 townhouses on Great Island,
Yeah.
it's different.
So,
It's a
yeah.
different ballgame. Thank you, though. Anything else? Anyone, last comments?
One thing before
Go
we
right
go, we're still working on this. We have the memo that we would like to prepare and give to you summarizing the meetings that we've had with the committees and the commissions. But the next big thing that we were planning on is the open house. And there's been some discussion as to when that should be. Originally it was planned for July, right? Early July.
Well, we were thinking June,
Late June.
but then we're
Our
up
concern is
against
that
we're up
it
against
conflicts.
our budget for the end of June also, so.
Well, and also the biggest concern is that it may conflict with people's summer plans, that attendance may be hurt. And so the suggestion was aired, it doesn't make more sense to wait until September. And if you have strong feelings or feedback on that, we would be curious to hear it.
It's, the last thing you want to do is be criticized to have it in August. And I can tell you that the weekend after school ends, everybody goes,
Well, that's my view.
but there are people here in July.
Yeah.
Once you get past July 1st, once you get past July 4th, and before you get to August 1st, that's a window where I think people are, because there's swim teams, there's baseball, there's lacrosse, summer lacrosse, people are around for all that
How
stuff.
would it impact your overall schedule if you did wait till September?
Well, I think we actually have on my schedule that the second workshop is gonna be held in September. So we're kind of slowing things down by a few months, which is why I think, I was actually talking to Fred, and Fred had suggested potentially July as well. And if you think July is workable, then we'll probably want to do like a mid-July meeting.
Well, let's ask
But if not,
the people with young
we
kids.
could do September.
I mean, if the second one is supposed to be in September, I mean, I think July makes a lot more sense than doing it later August.
You have baseball or something.
Yeah, so everybody's here till the end of July, basically, and then August is kind of like
Yeah.
because school starts the last week of August, some sports start the week before that, so the first 2 weeks of August is a lot of people go on vacation.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna do it, like Steve said, I think July 4th is late, or it's like late in the week, like a Thursday this year. So as long as it's after like the 5th or 6th, that second week in July, third week, I think you'll get, most people in town are still here.
Okay.
Whereas August, it's definitely a much emptier.
And people, I've heard this criticism before, with anytime you do an event, why would you do it in the summer? But that, in your opinion, you think July would be the one workable time period to do it without people going?
Let me ask you, how critical is the success of the first workshop? I'll say the turnout of the first workshop, how it informs your remaining workshops.
I think that, we want our first, since we've already kind of done the campaigning and everything, we have the survey results. I think we'd want to have a good turnout for our first workshop. And so, but if everybody's in town in July,
Okay.
if that's a thing, and people will be here.
Can I
I
interrupt one
think
second?
you're flipping a coin between losing steam
Yeah.
by waiting
Yeah.
or just continuing, and you might have a little bit less turnout, but I think it's a coin toss.
If you don't mind, Monica, do you mind chiming in? How did the workshops go with Great Island? Because I know you've had multiple. Were the
Yeah,
first
so-
ones unattended, and the second ones later? How's it work?
So we did 3
Monica
surveys.
McNally's second selectman.
I'm just on the board. But I'm chair of Great Island, so I'm kind of aware of what's going on there.
Once you're on a microphone, just-
So,
Just pick it up.
so we've had three community engagements, and each one of them included a survey. We have the 4th coming up this week. We're not doing a survey. For the first 3 surveys, we had 5,200 responses. The first survey, we had 2,374 responses. Major home run.
Yeah.
So the
That was-
second one was better than the first one.
No, the first one was 2,374 total for the 3. I don't remember the breakup for
Okay,
the second and
okay,
the
I'm
third.
sorry.
First one was half, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that was, from our consultant's point of view, a tremendous, yeah, it was, this is a pretty well-known firm, and that's the best response I've ever seen. So that just speaks to, I think, the interest in Great Island, not the lack of interest in the plan of conservation and development. So, but I think, if you want to, if you want to try to work with us for the July, maybe we can see if we can hold it in an interesting place that might draw people just for the location. So we can think about that, and maybe something on Great Island could help you.
Do you think a weekend day, like a
Yeah, we've
Saturday?
done it on the weekends,
Yeah.
and we've held them on Saturdays. The first one we held on Great Island, and the second one and the third one we did, the second one we did both, and the third one we
Hybrid,
did.
right?
Yeah, we did hybrid. So we did some in Town Hall, in the auditorium, and then a second session on the island. But I have to say that we had really good turnout for the Town Hall. So
Yes,
people.
that was my other question. Where were you thinking the venue was? Because me, I just default to town hall.
Yeah.
Because that's where it's always been, but.
And
I
it
may
holds,
be
it
wrong.
holds a lot, the acoustics are good, you don't have to worry about weather. So,
Because I know there was some discussion about the library, and I'm not a fan.
I went to one of the Great Island meetings in the auditorium, Is that what you mean, the auditorium? Yeah, like, I tend to like a place, like round tables where people can sit together, that kind of thing, because
The gym.
rather than giving a
Town hall gym.
presentation.
Yeah, the Mather Center, maybe.
Yeah.
So-
Mather Center, you have also Town Hall
Yeah.
Gym downstairs.
Yeah,
That's
we-
right, the Mather Center is what you had mentioned.
We actually, the second part of the last one was
Yeah.
in the gymnasium.
Right, I
and,
went to that one too, yeah.
And that worked out really, really well.
Yeah,
That gave you, the Mather Center's a little tighter,
Yeah,
but the gymnasium, it gives you good flow, right? You can, people can mill around, they
Right.
talk to each other, they talk to you and your group, so I
It's
think.
just
that-
hot in the summer, and so. for the town
Oh.
hall.
Oh, we don't have any air there? I thought we put air in there. Yeah, I think we did, yeah, let's check on that,
Let's check on that.
yeah.
all right, thanks.
Okay, we can figure that out.
All right.
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing here. You know, now that you're finishing up the meetings with the boards and commissions and interest groups, the surveys come to a conclusion at this point. The public workshop or public meeting, we're talking about 2 months out from now, possibly, mid to late July at this point. So maybe we could spend just a moment speaking about kind of the next steps, sort of, what we do during this next 2-month period in terms of making sure that, we're just good on collecting the background information for the town, the baseline data, and where we stand with potentially beginning to draft the amendments to the plan, and meeting with the commission to talk about, some of the details of the chapters as we move forward into this public meeting in July.
So you're talking about getting a table of contents?
Yeah, getting a table of contents.
So table of contents and that.
Start thinking about gathering data. We've been working closely with them on providing information as needed, and if there's research we need to do or the information they need, we can start tracking it down.
Yeah. Table of contents outline, something like that. Because, I mean, your workshop's not going to be July 15th, so to speak. Right now, it's May 15th, so you got exactly what you said, you got 2 months.
Right, so, yeah, I was looking at my page here in terms of next steps. Well, of course, the immediate next step is finalize the draft of these survey results. We want to post an update on the project website about this, as well as finish some sort of summary memo of the meetings that we've had with all the committees. Post the survey results in the town newsletter by the 23rd. I think that's the deadline. That's the actual date of the newsletter going out. Public workshops July. So yeah, so Fred, there is earlier on we have, and along with we had very specific requests about certain development data from you that you provided. Malcolm and Chris have been updating the demographic data. Have already done that. So my job is to review that now. I've been holding off on that until this was done. So I'll review that demographic data, and I think housing as well. Right, that's right. Demographic, economic, housing data. Yes, all together, all those pieces of data together. I think that's something that should be started to be turned into a narrative format that we can start to look at as a chapter in the POCD. But I think the table of contents, once we kind of get the structure, just decide whether, how is it going to be very similar? Is it going to be different for various needs? I think we want to start tinkering around with that table of contents and what it's going to look like.
Yeah, table of contents outline sometime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Great. Good. Yes, thanks for that. Great input. Thank you. Abe, we didn't miss anything, right? We can move on. You good?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we still have another 2 hours to go. Thank you.
Look at Jerry's face.
It was like 2 hours. Yankees are playing tonight. What are you talking about?
Not till later, though, right?
I know, that's I want to get home for the first inning. Right, we're good with you. Let's go on to the next item on the agenda. Town plan, Town of Darien, Great Island, 40 Great Island Road. known as PL 25-68, request for placement of tables, chairs, and umbrellas at Great Island Stables and for placement of benches at various locations throughout Great Island. This sounds pretty innocuous, but I mean, I understand what you do. Why do we have to see this? We don't approve benches at every other place in town.
Yeah, you know, this is really more of a courtesy of the town, you know, given the public interest of Great Island, and it's really a situation where the town has made the choice to present this information to the commission almost as a courtesy, you know, given the history of the town's acquisition here and the public interest in this land. So the town has submitted information relative to placing tables and chairs and umbrellas in the direct proximity of the stables within the courtyard, the paved courtyard directly in front of that building.
Okay.
As well as a number of benches throughout various locations on the island. And Monica McNally has been kind enough to provide a draft map to the commission and has been uploaded to the OpenGov application as well, showing the location of not only the tables and chairs in connection with the stables, but the various locations of the benches throughout the island.
Cool.
Our main concern was sort of keeping those benches and the tables and chairs outside of regulated areas on the island, including, you know, outside of flood zones, outside of regulated wetland areas. And this map clearly shows that those benches are located outside those regulated areas, with the small exception of 3 benches in sort of the central area of the island where the polo fields are currently.
We can deal with that. Does a guy like Rich Tominelli, did you show it to him? Because I did speak
Yes.
with Eric Yost.
Yeah.
So Rich Tominelli is fine?
Yeah, but there's no activity within 50 feet of wetlands.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Right. Because I spoke to the chairman of the Environmental Protection Commission. He goes, you can have as many benches out there as you want.
Yeah,
It was all exciting.
you know, again, you have to remember, this is a pretty big property, so,
65 acres.
yeah, so if the state statutes say, if there's a substantial improvement to town property, you have to issue a report. This is clearly not a substantial improvement. This is just tables and chairs and benches, which will be put out there for the public convenience. People, and again, right now, it's only walking access. You can't drive
Okay.
currently.
I'd love
But
to
it gives
see
people an opportunity who walk there to sit down, and this way, your public spaces becomes a little more social, and it has people sitting in safe areas instead of wandering around looking for a place to sit.
Yeah, bringing the beach there. Okay. I mean, I went to Parachute Point today, and I put my boat in the water, and right next to the dock is a bench that was donated by somebody who I guess found it at home. And it's a beautiful, nice teak bench that's right on the water. It's 10 feet from the rocks, and it's held down by a chain. So I assume this is the same thing. It's gonna be that. Do you want to present something to us, Monica? We could. More than welcome. You're here. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for, all of you for looking at this application.
This is Monica McNally.
Monica McNally, Chair of Great Island Advisory Committee.
Fantastic.
And do you need my address? No, okay, sorry. So I think Fred did an excellent job. I would just say, and Steve, to your point, Mr. O'Faney, to your point, that we are looking to provide some comfort for people, right? We have about a mile .1, a mile .2 of a loop. And when the bridle trail is open, that's about another half a mile. So you can get some good steps in there. And so instead of having people sit on the walls, which even though we have signs, please don't sit on the walls, they do beckon. So we're hoping that the benches beckon a little bit more. And then we want to check out get a feel for if we do something in front of the stables, what kind of feedback do we get? So we have 18 tables there, and
sorry, just speak to the mic, please.
speaking to the mic. Sorry. So we have 18 tables there, and we have 19 benches distributed throughout the property. We won't start with that number, but we felt that would be, a good benchmark to let us get a feel for if this will be successful or not.
Fantastic. Any questions for Monica?
Anything with ADA compliance we need to think about?
No, we did address the bathrooms for ADA, but the tables and chairs and benches are the same as all of our other properties.
Yeah. I think I donated $100 towards a bench that sits at Highland Farms. My name might be on it, I've never seen it, but I don't know where it is, but it's there someplace.
I guess I would just highlight what I think I've heard. There's nothing permanent about the placement of any of these benches or chairs or tables.
No. I did speak with Department of Public Works. We don't want the benches to be relocated, let's put it that way. So we will do something to make sure the benches aren't relocated. But they, something like that, Adam. But they will not be cemented down or anything like that.
Yeah, I think like Highland Farms, the one
Yes.
that, I think
That's what we're thinking.
It's held down by like a chain, right? So someone
Exactly.
can't go there at midnight and steal the bench and take it through their backyard.
I mean, again, there are no cars on Great Island, so unless
Right.
you're going to carry the bench off the island, we're probably okay right now.
My son was in a fraternity.
But yes, we don't want them moved around.
Yeah, but they might form a circle with a couple benches kind of thing, you know what I mean? Which we don't want either.
That's what
As
we're.
opposed to like
Yes.
stealing it off the island would be pretty
Yes,
impressive.
we don't want them relocated.
The only additional regulation would be related to any structures or furniture that was placed within the flood zone area. So they would need to be designed to be compliant with the FEMA regulations and Section 820 of our regulations relative to being anchored to the land. So what would that look like?
But we're not in a flood zone, right?
Right. So
I mean,
they-
you should look at the one that's at Pear-Tree Point, right at the dock. I think it's 5 feet from the water.
They are showing several benches within the flood zone, however.
Those are the ones that are overlooking the polo field, right?
Correct, right.
Yeah.
And we will address that.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. We take a straw vote, right?
Yeah.
All in favor of approving the benches as presented and tables and chairs and umbrellas?
0. Great.
Any opposed? Any questions? Nothing? You got your benches, tables, and chairs.
Thank you. Thank you,
These guys will
everyone.
send you a letter with some questions or something. You're welcome. They're ready? Next item up for business. Business site plan application number 53E, as in Edward, also known as PL 25-74, the Nielsen Company, 3 and 6 Thorndal Circle, proposal to modify the parking lot and on 3 and 6 Thorndal Circle to eliminate the dead end that will be created by the neighboring residential multifamily development recently approved by the commission at 1 and 16 and 22 Thorndal Circle. The 4.07 plus or minus acre subject property is located on the western terminus of Thorndal Circle, approximately 350 feet west of its intersection with Boston Post Road. It is shown as Assessor's map number 39 as lots 16, 17, and 17A in the designed office district. Jeremy, Fred, what do we got?
Yeah, this application was submitted as an amendment to the previous business site plan application 53E from many years ago relative to the Nielsen properties and directly adjacent to the project that was, of course, just approved by the commission in the past month or so for the multifamily residential development at Thorndal. So as part of that new development that was approved by this commission, the directly adjoining lots to the west are being, the access to those parking lots are being modified. The northernmost curb cut is being closed off, and the applicant, the Nielsen Company, is proposing to make some minor modifications to that parking lot to allow for the closing off of that parking lot had resulted in sort of a dead-end situation. So they're looking to reconfigure that parking lot, move two of the parking spaces to allow for circulation throughout that parking lot.
Okay.
Craig Flaherty from Redness and Mead can explain the details better than me. So
I think you did a fine job. But
yeah.
Craig Flaherty with Redness and Mead, professional engineer licensed in the state of Connecticut, here on behalf of the Nielsen Company. When the transaction moves forward with Trammell Crow on the 3 lots here and the other lot over off Hacker, the Nielsen Company will retain ownership of 3 and 6. These 2 parcels were not a part of the development plan that you reviewed and approved. And that new plan that was approved, well, let me do the survey first, right? So this is the only way into this parking lot. They don't connect down here by the buildings because there's a big wooded lead knoll in this area. So this is the
Is that other curb cut being closed on Thorndal Circle?
this one's being closed.
No, the other one, the one at Thorndal Circle.
No, that stays. This stays open.
Yeah.
This parking lot stays open.
That's
you
a
can't.
dead
You don't
end.
drive here.
Yep.
Yep. So that northern one gets closed, and in the residential approval, it just closed it. It didn't do anything with it, and so Jerry wants to just cycle that around, so it's not a dead end anymore.
Okay.
And so,
Out of curiosity, Craig, where's 17A? Because you said it was 3 parcels.
yeah, so yeah, the approval of Trammell Crow one. No, our site is 2 parcels.
Because our
site
legal
is 2
notice says
parcels.
3. It says 16,
Yeah.
17, and 17A.
16, 17, 17A, for whatever reason.
Okay, that's right, they combined 16, 17. Okay, sorry.
Yep.
Yep.
So those are the three tax parcels, 2 land parcels, used in 1 site plan approval.
Okay. So you close.
Don't ask me any more questions about that. Anyway, so back to what we're doing, the area of work, just to kind of relate to the next door plan. This is the area of work, and this is what wants to be done. We create a little 15-foot one way in. This is a 2-way drive, so you can loop in, loop all the way around, loop back out. These plantings are actually a part of the planting plan next door, 3 big holly trees. And the only thing else to note, which is applicable and which has been reviewed by Ty and Bond and Joe Canis, is that we're increasing impervious coverage with this new driveway by 560 square feet, which is lower than the threshold of 1,000 square feet in Section 880 for a complete stormwater management plan. But it's also mitigated by the fact that water kind of flows in 2 directions here. If it flows this way to this catch basin, it ends up cycling through an oil grid separator, an infiltration system, and a rain garden. And if it comes down here, gets into 2 catch basins, and goes into an oil grid separator before going out to the brook. So because of the extreme and significant and robust retrofit of the stormwater system for the other office park properties, there will still be an improvement even with this additional 560 square feet being added. So we asked for a waiver of Section 880 to not put specific stormwater management on site. That was reviewed by SLR, the design engineer for the neighboring project, who agreed, and it was reviewed by Ty and Bond, who also agreed. Ty and Bond did do a review of this, provided their comments on May 7th, said no further information was requested, suggested a couple of conditions of approval, which we're happy to accept.
Fantastic. Okay. Bottom line, relative to Ty and Bond, they just said they want the tracking plan and show erosion control in the site plan.
Yep,
And they just
A and B.
agreed. Question, comment from this one? Amy, you good? Mike?
Good.
Okay.
Yep.
I would enter a motion to approve as requested. Adam makes a motion, George makes a second. You're all set.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Craig.
Right.
Good luck with that.
Happy to see the transfer station was the second most favorite spot in town.
I knew you'd take a minute. Be proud of that. You worked hard over there. Next up on the agenda, we have a little bit of news, but let's read it anyway. The following item is deliberations only. Special permit application number 312, B as in boy, also known as PL 25-25, HDR Holdings LLC, Wonder Restaurant at 1897 Boston Post Road. Proposed to establish a new restaurant involving the sale of pre-prepared foods within a 3,600 square foot plus or minus first floor space of the building. Proposed the public hearing closed on April 22nd, 2025. The decision deadline is June 26, 2025. Fred today sent us a letter that we got dated May 13th, which is today. Fred, would you read this into the record for me? Here you go.
Yeah, so the applicant's representative Jay Klein of Carmody Law sent a letter dated today, May 13th. Dear Mr. Donite, I'm writing to you on behalf of our client, HDR Holdings, LLC, the applicant. As you know, our firm filed PL 25-25, the application, on behalf of the applicant on February 11, 2025. I'm writing to let you know that after thoughtful consideration, the applicant has decided to withdraw the application by way of this letter. Our project team thanks you and the members of the Darien Planning and Zoning Commission for your time, attention, considering this matter.
Sounds like it's
signed Jay Klein.
It's withdrawn, so let's go on to the next item. Okay. Deliberations to possible, thank you, Fred. Deliberating possible decisions on the following. Special permit application number 238G, as in George, also known as PL 25-51, Longevite Aesthetic and Wellness at 883 Boston Post Road. Proposed to establish an aesthetic and wellness personal service and retail business in the first floor formerly occupied by Check Body Mind. The public hearing closed on April 22nd, 2025. This, and don't say decision deadline. Okay, there we go. Anyway, in our packets, we got a draft resolution dated today for 883. Any questions, comments, scrivener's errors, typos in this one? Pretty straightforward. They're putting in a wellness spa for a woman that has a spot now over at Goodwife Shopping Center, which is part of that salon whole thing at the end.
Yes.
Parking was late, the layout made sense. I didn't see anything jumped off the page on this one to me.
Yeah.
Okay, with that said or not said, an entertain a motion to approve as submitted or as drafted. Jamie makes a motion. George makes a second.
Abstaining.
Abstaining, all right. Amy makes a second. All in favor? 3. And 1 abstention.
I haven't had the pleasure of reviewing that meeting.
Thank you, sir. So that's 5-0 to 1, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Fantastic. Next item up for bid. Coastal Site Plan Review number 88B as in boy, also known as PL 25-12, Raoul and Elina Sherwitzl at 86 Delafield Island, proposal to raise the existing residence to the foundation and construct a new single-family dwelling. Construction of a new pool house, and perform related site development activities within a regulated area. The public hearing closed on April 22nd, 2025. In our packets, we got a draft resolution dated today, May 13th. This was the house kind of in the middle of Delafield Island, not too deep into it.
All the way
Actually,
down
no,
the
it is
water.
at the end, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is the one that's on Scott's Cove, right?
Yep.
Yep.
All rocky
Yeah.
property, on the ledge.
Any questions, comments, staff, post, criminals, on this one that I said already?
I had in there that the health department, the septic system work was still ongoing. Did we have clarity on that?
Well, that was a subject to thing.
Was that subject to
Yeah,
department's approval of the
I
septic?
thought they said in the meeting they'd ironed it out with the health department, the representative did.
yeah, that's correct. They did eventually receive their sign off and approvals from the health department on
Do you know,
this.
do you have it in the file already?
I'm not sure that it's part of the file. We can add it to the
I'm looking at my
file.
notes, and that's what I have on here.
Yeah.
The notes, I'm trying to.
I'll take a look. It was in the docs before the hearing.
Well,
The health
I-
department still had some other stuff, but he said in the meeting that they'd ironed it out.
So you just get a follow-up letter, it's gonna get submitted.
Yeah.
Okay. You wanna look through that, or is there anything on the website connected to it?
Yeah.
Can't get anything past this commission, man. So many gets
Yeah, I don't believe it's part of the file currently. We can,
Just double check on that and make a condition of the,
conditional.
delete it before getting the zoning and building permit.
Yeah,
Certainly,
they would.
no doubt about that.
Anyway,
Can certainly add that in G if you'd like.
Why don't you add that to G, and then we can vote on this and close it out on our end.
Okay. Health department approval, that would be a new number.
Do number 4? G4?
Yep, G3 approval, yep.
There's a G3 there already, right?
Yeah, I was thinking we can even make it part of number 2. Health department approval prior to accept the zoning and building permits.
Whatever you want. Just state what you wrote, and we'll just approve that. Just state what you wrote.
Health department approval will be required prior to the issuance of zoning and building permits, period.
Is that
Separate, and then it's separate zoning and building permits will be required.
So is that you're adding that to 2? Or
It's a
you're-
separate sentence to the start of number 2. I think that's a good point.
Okay, so it's still under number 2.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay with that?
With that said, entertain a motion to approve the resolution as amended. Amy makes the motion, Mike makes the second, all in favor? 5 to 0 to 1.
Yep.
1 abstention. Thank you, sorry about that. Dave. Let's see, any abstentions? Okay. Next, flood dam prevention application number 323 A's and Apple, PL 25-54, Geoffrey and Katherine Benson at 17 Waverly Road, proposed to construct a new pool, spa, and patio area and perform related site development activities within a regulated area. Public hearing closed on April 22nd, 2025. This is a house in the bay that's adding a pool to the backyard. I think this was pretty straightforward. The pool was smaller because it couldn't go over lot coverage, right?
That's correct. It's right up against building coverage. It is in the flood zone, so, and it meets all the setbacks.
Yep, and Ken has signed off on it, right?
Right. That is why we, in condition G, we talked about the need for a final as-built map. Deals with building coverage is important.
Yep.
Yep. And again, just, and you also have the elevation certificate, which is standard practice for now, for some of the flood zone. And just for the record, we allow people to build pools in flood zones. If it floods,
Right,
that's their problem.
yeah,
We
as
get all
long
ground
as it's
water.
certified.
Yeah.
Yes, as long as
correct.
it's structurally designed for flood standards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because is this the one where the guy added like extra rebar to the bottom of the pool? Yeah,
This one, but-
they were supposed to be like 8 inches on center, he made them 4 inches on center. Something like that, he like
I
doubled.
don't think that's the subject.
That wasn't this one?
I don't recall that
Okay.
being discussed.
That's what I found.
Is that the Tokenique one?
Yeah.
I would just call your attention to the existing platform on the north side of the house, condition E, is at a non-compliant elevation of 13 currently with the HVAC equipment on it. They intend on placing the pool equipment on that same platform.
That's
However,
way on the other
we're
side of the
gonna,
house.
we're gonna have them raise it to elevation from 13 to 15 to be compliant with the flood zone regulations.
Okay, I remember that was a long run for the whole shooting match.
Yep.
Okay, so there's no amendments to that, we're not changing anything in this one?
Nope.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve as drafted. Jamie makes a motion, Adam makes a second, all those in favor? 5, any denials? No? One abstention? One abstention?
Right.
Fantastic, all righty. 5-0 to 1. Okay, next item up for bid, land filling and regrading application number 585, also known as PL 25-43, Robert and Julie Brown at 33 Ridge Acres Road, proposed to construct additions and alterations to the existing single-family residence, including construction of a new 4-car garage, a rec room, office space, and reconfigure the existing driveways, perform related site development activities, including regrading of the property to accommodate the improvements, installation of stormwater management, and modifications to the existing septic system. The public hearing closed on April 22nd, 2025. This was kind of a cool application, and the neighbors did speak to make sure that house wasn't going to get flooded across Ridge Acres Road.
Right.
And the architect or planner that presented, I think, did a great job. And it's 100% a rec room on top of that garage.
Party barn.
That's what she called it, a party barn.
Yeah.
I thought it was dynamite.
Disco ball going in there.
Don't hide anything, just say it the way it is. Any questions, comments, typos, scrivener's errors on this one? I know we had a long hearing with the presenter and then the neighbor. And the other day we satisfied what the neighbor's plans were. Is there anything about what the neighbors talked about was in here? We say something, right? About comments from the applicant?
Well, we did have Mr. Canis review this in his, in section on page 2, paragraphs 6, 7, and 8, talks about stormwater management and how Mr. Canis submitted a final endorsement right before the meeting, day before the meeting, but he signed off on it.
There was definitely
There's
a
a
question
typo
about
here.
blasting. There's a specific statement that one neighbor was very concerned about blasting and what it would do to his pool structure. And they specifically stated that they would not be blasting. Is that something that we typically include? Or it's by default, they'd have to come before a permit, but they made representations that they did not intend to blast.
That, we could certainly include that at the end of paragraph C on page 4. Right now, we talk about, rock crushing or similar
Yeah.
processing. We could even say, at the end, no blasting has been requested by the applicant and none is approved herein.
Yes.
If the applicant
Yeah.
wishes to blast.
Yeah, because that was one of his specific concerns, that the guy to the immediate side.
Yeah.
The Peters are more concerned
Right.
about the drainage patterns, but and they represented that they were not gonna blast.
Yeah, that would, because we talked about that, that's guy's got approved as a fire marshal.
Right.
Yeah.
Good catch. There's also a minor typo on number 7. Increase in runoff is being mitigated, not increase is runoff
Got it.
is. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Oh, we've got a lawyer here who's arguing that's not a typo.
Oh, please.
What is it? Is
Keep
it
moving, keep moving.
he wants to get to the Yankee game. I get my chairman's report's gonna get cut short. Mike's gonna walk out. Okay. It's true. Motion to approve as edited. Mike makes the motion, Amy makes the second, all those in favor?
There you go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Any opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention. There you go.
Very
5
nice.
to 2. That's 0 to 1. The chairman had his foot on the gas, I think, on that one. All right, chairman's report. A couple of quick items. They are very quick. 77 Post Road, which is a building on the Post Road, where that's better known as where Kathleen Hamilton Hall is. That building just sold. Christine Hamilton Hall, that office building.
777.
777.
Oh, 777. I think it said 77, and I was doing my mind trying to pull that up.
That building sold about a month ago for like about $4.5 million. It's going to always stay as an office building.
Yeah.
Glenn Moore's, the law firm, is inside that building. It's fully leased. I think that bodes well for the town. The guy from Westchester bought it. I think he paid about $170 a foot, which is relatively low for town. But they'll probably put money into it and renovate it. That looks tired on the outside and can use a little upbringing. Which I think that's kind of fun and nice. There's a couple other buildings on the market for sale, which we're tracking, which I'm tracking, and Fred knows about it, and Chairman knows about it too, just to make sure that everything goes on. There's one, the site in the Roten Heights called for bids. I talked about that. We don't know what that's going to be yet. We don't know who the buyer is going to be yet, but I think they selected somebody. The big thing about that is whoever builds whatever they're going to build, they gotta connect the sidewalks. Yeah, I love the sidewalks. Because the brand new sidewalks are in front of Palmer's, and in front of, almost in front of, not in front of the post office yet, but in front of Palmer's, Wells Fargo, Goddard School. They're like 8 feet wide. You can drive one of those little tractor trailers down that thing, which is kind of cool. We just have to keep connected it so people can walk down there. And Goddard School is going to open in September, maybe August. And I think the apartments are supposed to be delivered somewhere in July. I think people are moving in. I don't think we have to do anything, really. It's just really fire marshal and building and sewer and all that stuff. That's correct. Yeah. I think they got hit a little bit behind. Let me just pass this down. I've got a really weird job that I do. In my job, that's the next thing. In my job, I read zoning codes all over the place just for a living. I get paid for it, I'm sorry. And get paid for it. And this one popped on my screen yesterday. We talked about moratoriums in town on certain things. You know, I just want you guys to think about it, and this is like a town plan and conservation development thing, maybe. I don't really know. Because we've talked about there's 1 million spas in town, there's 1 million nail salons, there's 1 million this in town. And this one jumped off the page to me because it was the next page. This is a document or a page on the town of Stratford's zoning regulations, where they put a moratorium on methadone clinics back in 2023, I'm sorry. And they recently put one on self-storage facilities. I do a lot of work up in that neck of the woods. There's like 1 million self-storage facilities. And they just said, okay, that's enough. You know, and they passed a moratorium. I don't think, to my knowledge, we have any permanent moratoriums on anything in town.
In Darien, not as of today.
Yeah, not as of today. So
Don't we have cannabis?
no, there's a zoning regulation against it.
Yeah.
Prohibited.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's not a moratorium.
It was a
I noticed
moratorium.
none of these have an end date.
Correct.
Like a revision to be reviewed 3 years
Me
out
too.
or anything.
Yeah.
Is that, so there would, I don't know if by default you can call a revision by saying, let's, propose to revoke the moratorium, and that can be called at any time. But I noticed that there's no, hey, kind of like what we did with the ADUs, we preset a review period to make sure it's working, or how can it be amended?
The reason why I bring this up, it's just a tool that could be in our toolbox if we need it. I'm not
Yep.
saying that we need it by any stretch of imagination, but, you know, every once in a while, I mean, like, I don't know how many spas are downtown or whatever they are downtown.
Yeah, it's always interesting there. It's certainly cyclical is, you know, it used to be coffee shops and
Then
right now it's
banks.
banks. For a long time it was banks.
Yeah.
Now it's spas.
Realty offices can't be on the post
Realty.
road.
So, but, you know, the economies change
Yeah.
and sometimes things are in favor, sometimes, so we continue to monitor,
Yeah,
see what's
So,
going on. But
I
yeah,
just-
very interesting.
I thought that was interesting. And this, because I waste time, I like wasting paper at the office. Just the building, that's all, I don't really care. I had fun printing out stuff.
I did have an office in there at one time, and we knew of it as Bill Pitt's pride and joy. For whatever reason, he had many buildings around the county and all that, but this one he always particularly appreciated.
So those are the two things that I wanted to mention. There's a couple other things that come, and then, I guess, I don't know, it's probably gonna be a director's report. There's a couple other things that are out there. If anyone had a question, the thing that I always care about is the stuff that's gonna sell in town. Because I know something's gonna happen, and we're gonna get, brought in on it. We just want to be cognizant. I always like to be in front of things. The next thing is a director's report. I don't know if Jeremy's gonna punt it to Fred, but this week, the state legislature passed, or moved forward, fair share. What's the exact word she said? Fair share is gonna go to the floor, I think, for a vote, which is one of the bills, and I don't know the bill numbers, but that's what they're called by what's the right word? It's an acronym for them. The other one that I think is important is the state wants to change zoning across the entire state to abolish anything above 1 acre zoning. So 2 acre zones will be wiped out. We have a bunch of 2 acre zones in northern, I call it North Darien, which is really, goes straight up Hollow Tree Ridge Road towards it.
And is the proposal to abolish it and reset the standards, or grandfather not to make any new? Like, what are
I
the?
think it's abolished. So everything that's 2 acres is now 1
everybody that's in a 2
acre.
acre parcel suddenly jump all, you can split my lot?
Yep.
And they honestly think that's gonna reduce affordability? I mean, increase affordability, it will do the exact opposite.
I spoke to John Zagrowski about it yesterday.
It will do the exact opposite.
And in Greenwich, I don't disagree with you, and this is what I explained to him, is, for argument's sake, my house is now worth $1 million, and it's on a 2 acre lot. Now, all of a sudden, it's 2 houses, so now my house should be worth $1.1 million. Then somebody's gonna go by, knock it down,
Exact opposite.
and make 2 lots, and build a brand new construction, and new construction, I think everybody knows, is about twice the price of old construction.
Yeah.
So in Greenwich, it's even worse, because their 4 acre zone, which is in North Greenwich, or whatever they call it, Upper Greenwich, they have all 4 acre zones up there. They might even have 6, I don't even know. So that whole thing, you get wiped out. And that's it's the theory behind it, and I'm not, a politician, and I'm not a demographic planner, but the theory behind it is supply and demand. If we create more houses, eventually the price is gonna drop. They tried that in Westport, where they created those townhouses that are on, they're on the Saugatuck River, and they said, we'll put in townhouses instead of regular houses. They're the highest priced townhouses I've ever seen in Fairfield County. I don't know why, but Fred, you please take it over and tell us what you want to tell us?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a whole lot to add, Steve, but there's still, 20 plus housing-related bills kind of hanging out there waiting for a vote, right? And, we've talked in the past about sort of this omnibus catch-all bill that was presented as an empty bill as Senate Bill 12, which to my knowledge is really still a shell of a bill that we expect a lot of these open housing related bills to sort of end up combined into this omnibus bill. And from what I've heard, that fair share bill, which is of great concern to a lot of folks, a lot of municipalities,
And that number.
may
that-
end up in that omnibus bill as well. I don't know if you've heard anything differently on
Do you-
that, Steve?
I'm just looking what Margarita told me. She said the fair share bill still has a number, which is 6944.
Correct. Right.
And then the max acre bill is 7112.
Right, yep.
So
All the bills still have their own individual SB or HB numbers.
And SB means
that's-
Senate bill.
Right.
Each House bill.
Well, they just released the fair share calculations recently, which is why they've had that part on kind of stalled until they had those numbers.
Hey, you're up to speed on this stuff too, aren't you?
I-
Fair share, how many houses are we supposed to build in Darien? Like 3,000?
I don't remember, but it's a lot.
Yes, so this is the actual chart that's been sort of developed by the Open Communities Alliance, is the group that's put forth this bill, and there's 3 different studies that make up this fair share housing bill, and it's going to be up to the lawmakers to decide which allocation they're going to go with, right, as part of pushing this bill through. And the allocation speaks to the number of additional affordable units that would be put forth. So under the 3 allocations, the first allocation is 1,244 additional affordable housing units.
For Darien? Or?
For Darien.
Do that again, say it one more time.
So 1,244. The second allocation is 1,967 additional affordable housing units. And the third allocation is 1,229.
Okay, let me just stop you for a second there. Is that additional affordable housing units or additional housing units?
That's additional affordable housing units.
So at Trammell Crow, we're getting 25 units.
Right.
And that's gonna be the biggest project in town of Darien in years,
Correct.
right? So you need, I can't even do that math.
You need like 10 more Avalon projects or 20 more Avalon projects.
Is
Because Avalon's 47.
Yeah,
Weebranch for sale?
for sure. I'll stay mine.
Right. I don't see CDs though. Wow.
Capital call.
Right. On a statewide basis, those allocations are 117,000 and change, 119,000 and change, and yeah, there's two of the allocations are, let's see, 119,610 and 119,618, and then the third allocation is 117,235. So just huge numbers.
Just buy Glenbrook.
Right.
Like that would fix it, right?
So there's things that get done, and I'm not gonna say it's in the background, but it's kinda in the background. We monitor this stuff, and this stuff comes through, and Fred's on top of it, and where it comes from, I don't know. But we just had him up there talking for 45 minutes, saying that people are freaking out that things move too fast.
We're getting the opposite from, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
and it's, you know.
Yeah.
Does it say, do you know, is there anything happening with 830G? That nothing, that's,
I've not heard anything moving
me neither.
to change 830G.
Yeah, I don't know of any specific changes to 830J.
Okay, and we're still at, our housing's still at 14%.
The inclusionary zoning requirement, which is one of the highest in the state.
Most of the state's 10, right? I think.
Yeah, if
Some
four
are
communities
5.
that even have it. I mean,
Some are 0.
very few communities have an inclusionary requirement.
I
Very few.
keep running into deals in Stanford and Norwalk that there's no affordable housing in the zone. I think it's because they might do the fee and lieu. more
Yeah,
there.
some towns take the fee in lieu.
Stanford and Norwalk are taking it now. And what
Don't
they're
they
gonna do.
actually meet the 10%?
Yeah.
They're way above it,
Yeah,
that's the
they're
problem.
But they still There's one that's on.
But it doesn't require new to be developed, yeah.
UBS it goes UBS, RBS, the RBS building, which has got a new name now, they have a phase 2, which is the big piece of grass behind it, that's on the river.
Yep.
That is supposed to be phase 2 RBS. They sold that to a guy up in the city called, I'm gonna say Clinton, but that's not right. They're supposed to put like 500 units in there, and they were gonna put in 10% affordable. At the last minute, the city said, no, we want cash. So they wanted all the cash for the 10% affordable. The developer blinked and said no, because they want to take that money and put it into like Mill River Park. But the developer would rather just build the units, make them affordable, versus write a check. I mean, I think in our town, we're taking checks from a guy like Clip Platt or something like that. That's, $900,000. It's not, it's not 50 million. It's a little bit different, but. So that's, you kind of have to do this, and I try to communicate a little bit with Tracy Marr, who's our rep, that I know the best. Tom O'Day is too. I've never really communicated personally with Bob Duff, who's on the Senate side, or if Billy Miller is still around. I think she moved up, and then who's the other woman? No, the other woman with the blonde hair, she's really a spitfire. She's great. But Tracy Marr is the chairman of like the healthcare committee or something like that, and she's trying to get her own bills through. And Tom O'Day covers everything, but it's hard to communicate. But what I'm being asked is to reach out to your legislators. We can send another letter to them or something like that. But I asked Zagrodsky to study it. Did he check with you today?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
So the thing with fair share, I think, is that we're not going to be required to do anything like those numbers. We're going to get some kind of incentive to do it, some kind of financial incentive. I can't imagine what it is. But, and other towns and communities will get some kind of financial incentive to do it, to create some affordable housing. I suspect it's going to have no impact on us.
Yeah, see, I was always told that it's not the incentive, it's the opposite. Instead of giving you money, they're going to take money away.
Well, that'd be a fairly key aspect to learn about that bill.
Yeah, I mean basically
if you don't comply, you lose.
Yeah.
What they used to do is if you don't comply, you use transportation funding, which is like money to fix the train stations, or Greenwich and Westport. If you ever go to downtown Greenwich and Westport, they have blocks in the middle which are stamped asphalt to get you across town, and they got that through some funding.
I would just say what used to be ain't so relevant today.
Correct.
So we got to find out.
Correct.
Which way that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this bill basically assigns that numeric that target, right, which is put forth in these tables that have been developed.
20% more.
Housing stuff. It basically adds a requirement for municipalities to amend their zoning regulations to allow for realistic opportunities to develop these additional housing units. And if it's determined that the town isn't taking the necessary actions to amend their zoning regulations to allow these units, then it opens the municipality up to litigation, right? So the town can be sued to allow these or force the addition of more units in the town.
That's something, I think what you're saying, that was something similar a few years ago. They said any property within, a mile of a train station.
That's a workload ride.
Yeah, the density was 30 units an acre.
That's still around too, that bill.
Yeah, but we wrote letters, and that 30 units an acre got dropped. And just as a reference point, Avalon is 9 units an acre. And I think, I know Trammell Crow is 15 or 16, I think Federal at Palmer's 15 or 16. So you would double the size of Parklands and all those. And that's crazy, but anyway. Anything else?
There's 3 weeks left within the legislative session. The legislative session closes on June 4th. So, you know, in these next few weeks is when we're going to see these last bills get pushed through and included in this omnibus bill. And, you know, some of them may stand out on their own, but I suspect a lot of them will end up in that sort of larger bill. And we don't expect lawmakers to have much of an opportunity to review what gets put forth before it gets voted on, so.
Hey, could we text Jamie? Do you watch this stuff on TV?
All night long.
Yeah.
Just do.
So if you ever see it, want to always get an update at midnight when they're voting?
Yeah.
Text her.
Midnight, yeah.
She's all over it. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll know, you know, we'll know the first week in June what happens here.
Okay. Jeremy, anything to add?
The only thing I would add is I met with the gentlemen who are in the process of demolishing Bertucci's and putting in a car wash. Bertucci's is almost entirely demolished. They expect to start working on the car wash building in June. So that's moving right along.
Yeah. And then if anyone goes by Good Wives, Chip Platt and 7 Cedric is well out of the ground.
Oh, yeah, they're
Yeah.
moving real fast on Sedgwick.
I was told that building's going condos.
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Right here,
Yeah, signs
Yeah,
of.
like $2 million condos, is that right?
to be determined.
Okay. So it's not apartments anymore, so you can sell your house, buy a $2 million condo.
Very handy to shopping.
And funny.
So that's, I mean, it's good to see that stuff's moving forward that we approved. And then Parklands, we have a meeting.
Parklands, they're going to be coming back before the commission for some minor changes to the site plan and the settlement that was done with the neighbors.
So we had nothing to do with it. No, we had nothing to do with the settlement, but we signed off on it. It wasn't
And
this.
so they're in the process of circling back to the neighbors, making sure these changes are okay with the neighbors. Then they'll come before the commission, likely at one of your meetings in June, to say, here's the new plan, here's the changes.
No, I heard they went to ARB.
They did for a change in the facade, and the ARB did like the facade change.
Okay. Sounds good. Anything else?
Nothing else.
Next meeting, May 27th. Anything
2
special?
weeks from tonight. Really 2 agenda items, 2 hearing items. One is on 65 Pear Tree Point Road. If I remember, it's a small addition to some retaining walls in the house. That's right on the water. But the big application is 104, 108 Old Kings Highway. It's the 2 small structures next to Trader Joe's. You can take down 2 small buildings and put up 8-unit apartment building. EPC closed the hearing.
Was that the one where they put
Trader Joe's
the?
and the gas station?
No, it's on Old Kings Highway. It's across the street from Fuji.
Next to the tennis bubble.
Got it.
Yeah, right behind the tennis bubble.
Are they putting in a dock, too?
Yes.
Oh,
It floods there.
It floods there?
Every time it even thinks about raining, there's a river that flows through those yards.
So that's why the Gleason, what's the guy's name?
Sean Shea,
Sean Shea.
Dan Conlon. So that'll be the main event, if you will, on May 27th.
Okay. June 3rd, anything special?
June, we're still looking, but from what we've seen so far, busy but not crazy busy.
Okay. Then we close out the fiscal year. All right, anything else to add? Any other business to add for this? Good? Get Mike out of here by 9 o'clock. Entertain a motion to close. Jamie makes a motion. Mike makes a second. All in favor? Carries closed. Thank you, TV 79.